There exists an 800-year-old code so powerful it can eliminate any weak habit from your life in a matter of weeks. But there's a catch. You must be willing to symbolically die in order to be reborn. What you're about to discover has completely changed the way I view discipline, self-control, and personal transformation. Imagine a code so powerful that it transformed ordinary men into living legends. A system that produced warriors capable of resisting any temptation, any weakness, and any destructive impulse. This ancient system is Bushido, the way of the warrior. Before you assume this is just old philosophy with no modern use, consider this shocking fact. Researchers at Kyoto University found that samurai had a 300% lower rate of moral failure compared to the general population of their time. They were more disciplined, more principled, and more committed to their word. But here's what most people don't know. Samurai were not born that way. They became that way by following a precise psychological and spiritual code. Today, you're going to learn how to apply that same code to your modern life. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your bad habits aren't personal flaws, they're symptoms of something much deeper. You'll see how Bushido can help you transform at the identity level, not just the behavioral level. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and activate the bell so you never miss any content. Now let's begin with a story that will change how you view discipline forever. The story of the samurai who killed his old self. 12th century feudal Japan. A young samurai named Taira was trapped in a destructive addiction. Every night he drank sake until he passed out. When his superiors discovered this, he was brought before his master. The master did not shout. He did not punish him. He simply said, "Taira-san, you are dishonoring not only your name, but your true nature. Tomorrow you will commit seppuku on your former self." Now, traditional seppuku was a brutal ritual reserved for samurai. But the master wasn't talking about physical death. He meant symbolic death, the death of the weak ego, the death of the identity that produced destructive habits. Taira spent 3 days meditating on who he truly was versus the weak version he had been acting as. When he returned, he not only stopped drinking, he became one of the most disciplined samurai of his generation. What changed? Taira discovered the truth most people never realize. Weak habits are not failures of character. They are the behaviors of an identity you have outgrown. And that's where Bushido comes in, a system designed to reconstruct your identity from the inside out. The 5 principles that rewrite your identity. Bushido is not just a list of rules. It's a complete system of identity reconstruction, a psychological blueprint that reshapes who you believe yourself to be. It works through 5 transformative principles that can reprogram both your self-image and your habits. 1. Jai. Righteousness. Radical self-honesty. A samurai with Gai never lied to himself. If he was lazy, he admitted it. If he was cowardly, he acknowledged it. Because you cannot defeat an enemy you refuse to see, Gai means stop making creative excuses. Stop downplaying the habits damaging your potential. Stop pretending your weak patterns aren't that bad. Transformation requires truth, and truth begins with honesty about your current behaviors. 2. Jin. Benevolence. Self-compassion. Most people fail to break bad habits because they turn the battle inward. They hate themselves for their habits, punish themselves, and create an internal war they cannot win. But a samurai practicing Jin approaches discipline differently. He understands that discipline rooted in self-hatred collapses. Discipline rooted in self-love grows. You correct yourself not because you despise who you are, but because you care enough to become who you could be. 3. Rei. Respect. Treating yourself as sacred. Rai means honoring yourself the way you would honor a revered master. Ask yourself, would you allow someone you deeply respect to live with the habits you currently tolerate? If the answer is no, then why do you allow it for yourself? Rei teaches you to raise your standards not out of pressure, but out of respect for the person you are trying to become. 4. Makoto. Sincerity. Brutal truth. Makoto requires looking into the mirror of your soul without filters, without excuses, without emotional makeup. A behavioral psychologist with 25 years of experience once said, "People don't change because they don't want to. Feel the pain of seeing who they really are." Samurai embraced that pain. They confronted their weaknesses directly and asked, "What is this habit costing me? Today? In 5 years? In 10 years?" Makoto requires a written inventory. On one side, your weakening habits. On the other, the true cost. On your confidence, your self-respect, your energy, your future. When you see the real price, change becomes inevitable. 5. Meiyo. Honor. Living as your highest self. Meiyo transforms everything. It means living every day as if your actions reflect the values you want your life to stand for. Imagine waking up and asking, "If I were the hero of a story about overcoming weakness and becoming my highest self, what would I do today?" Because you are that hero. You just haven't chosen to live as him yet. The science behind transformation. A neuroscientist at Stanford University spent 5 years studying people who permanently eliminated destructive habits. What he discovered was astonishing. Lasting change doesn't come from changing behavior. It comes from changing identity. When people saw themselves as disciplined, their brains looked for actions that confirmed that identity. When they saw themselves as weak, their brains reinforced weakness. Your brain always aligns with who it believes you are. And this is what makes Bushido so powerful. It doesn't force you to fight your habits. It reshapes the identity that creates them. A Harvard researcher studying Eastern philosophies concluded, Bushido is fundamentally a system of identity reconstruction. It transforms an ordinary person into someone who naturally acts with discipline, courage, and integrity. This isn't myth. This is psychology refined over centuries, the secret practice of the samurai. Daily ego death. There's a secret exercise the samurai used daily to break any bad habit in under 30 days. It's shockingly effective, and unlike anything taught in modern self-help. They called it the morning zazen of ego death. It's a 3-part ritual combining meditation, symbolic death, and conscious rebirth. 1. The physical practice. Morning zazen. Every morning, samurai sat in silent meditation. They released all judgment, allowing thoughts and images to pass without attachment. This built emotional neutrality and mental control. Meditation wasn't optional. It was psychological training for battle and for life. 2. The mental practice. Symbolic death. During this meditation, they practiced Shino Kokufuku, overcoming death. They visualized their own death for that day. They imagined burying the version of themselves from yesterday, the one with fears, weaknesses, bad habits, and old patterns. This allowed them to detach from identity itself. And when identity dissolves, habits lose their power. Each morning became a funeral for the weaker self. 3. The rebirth questions. After meditation, they asked themselves 3 questions. 1. If I died today, would I be proud of how I lived? 2. What habits would I take to the grave that I am ashamed of? 3. If I were reborn right now, how would I act differently today? These questions created clarity, urgency, and a heroic mindset. Why this method works so well? This practice worked because it created a daily psychological reset, detachment from destructive identity patterns, heightened awareness of personal values, reduction of fear and anxiety, elimination of trivial habits and distractions. By symbolically dying every morning, the samurai freed themselves from who they were and stepped into who they chose to be. And you can do the same. How to apply this ancient code today? You don't need a sword, armor, or a battlefield to practice Bushido. You only need 10 to 15 minutes each morning. Here's how to adapt the samurai ritual to modern life. 1 morning meditation, 10 to 15 minutes. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, let thoughts pass without judgment. This empties the mind and prepares you for identity reset. 2. Symbolic death visualization. Imagine the version of yourself from yesterday, the one with the bad habits, the insecurities, the doubts. Now visualize burying that version. Let it go. Release it completely. You are not fighting your habits. you are burying the identity that produced them. 3. Rebirth commitment. Ask yourself, if I were reborn right now, how would I live today? What would the strongest version of me choose to do? What actions honor my highest values? This activates the heroic identity within you. The truth most people never realize. You don't have bad habits. You have an identity that creates bad habits. And until you let that identity die, you will keep repeating the same patterns no matter how hard you try. Bushido doesn't ask you to fight your weaknesses. It asks you to outgrow them. When your identity changes, your habits fall away like old armor. The path of the inner warrior. Every day you face a choice. You can continue living as the fragmented version of yourself, repeating patterns that drain your power. Or you can choose the path of the warrior, the path of honor, discipline, and inner transformation. Bushido teaches that there is no neutrality in life. Every moment, you are becoming stronger or weaker, more disciplined or more distracted, more whole or more fragmented. The question is not whether you can change. You absolutely can. The real question is, do you have the courage to symbolically kill who you were so you can become who you were meant to be? Because your weak habits are not your destiny. They're simply evidence of an identity you haven't let go of yet. The code is here. The path is clear. The warrior you could become is waiting. The only question is, how much longer will you make him wait?